It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Yo, what is up, my friends? It has been what seems like a lifetime. I think it's been about 3 weeks of pure chaos for me. Time has been flying by. I feel like I went to sleep and Memorial Day, and here we are now. Like, it just is just jamming right now. We're super busy. I'm thankful for that. I'm very thankful for that. But as usual, things are chaotic. We're crazy. We're trying to catch up with all the craziness going on, and we're just taking it one day at a time. Started with Memorial Day weekend. I had taken some time off. My wife and I went away for the weekend, super chill, relaxing with the family. And then after that, just the chaos picked up, started getting busy, and, just hasn't stopped, basically. Today, I was very surprised. I skated out of work kind of early, had my apprentice riding with me. I told him we're going to get off early today. And, we scooted out of work, and I'm just avoiding the phones, avoiding my emails. Luckily, nothing's come in yet. So let's see how this goes. So obviously, I can't cover every single video, but I'm going to just kind of cover the highlights of the last few videos. I got a list of things I want to talk about. But let's start this off right. Okay, guys, my name is Chris. I'm an HVACR service technician here in Southern California, okay? I started making these videos for my employees, and that led to me making them public, and then this whole thing happened. I never planned on this turning into what it has turned into. I never planned on the amount of attention, all this stuff, okay? I probably don't treat the videos, the live streams, or anything the way that most people think I should treat them. My family comes first, work comes second, the live streams and the videos are just something that happens, when I can, okay? I realize the reach of the videos. I realize, I guess I'm technically that term influencer or whatever you want to call it. It's kind of weird. I don't see myself as anything special. I'm just another service technician. But, it is what it is. It's a very humbling experience. Thank you to everybody out there that has been supporting me. Guys, there's so many different methods to support me. The easiest way is what you guys are doing right now, watching the live streams, interacting, leaving comments, watching the videos from start to finish, leaving a comment, interacting, giving a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That is the easiest way to support the channel. Now, there's a couple other ways, such as Robert M. Acree, I believe is how you pronounce his name, became a channel member on YouTube, okay? Just a few minutes ago, it just popped up on my screen. That's kind of like Patreon. It's a way to support the channel on a monthly level. You can also support the channel via Patreon, PayPal. You can go to my website, hvacrvideos.com. We've got merchandise available, hats, shirts, beanies, all that good stuff. There's all different ways. But again, the easiest way is just simply watch the videos, guys, okay? But I have to thank all of you that have supported the channel through this time. Thank you so very much. You guys are amazing. For those that are in the chat right now, it looks like we have 148 people in there right now. Do me a favor and smash the like button. Or the thumbs down. I could care less. Just any kind of interaction. Help YouTube to see that you're actually interacting with the content. I'm told that helps with the whatever algorithm. I don't know. You know, I'm not a genius at any of this. I'm just a dude that works on air conditioners, okay, and does a mediocre job at that. I happen to film it, and I happen to share my mistakes with you guys, okay? Now, when it comes to this channel, I kind of want to cover this real quick. I treat this channel the way that I want to treat it, all right? I appreciate feedback. I appreciate comments. I appreciate criticism. I'm cool with it all. But one thing I want to make absolutely clear is this is my channel, and I will do as I please with my channel, okay? I will take feedback into consideration, but when I see negative feedback, which negative feedback is fine, but when I see negative feedback like your videos suck with music, that just makes me want to put more music in them, okay? Because I'm fueled by that. And I'm not saying I'm going to put music in every single video. I will, I won't. It just kind of depends on how I feel. These videos are an expression of how I feel when I make them, okay? And if I'm in a good mood and I throw some music in there, so be it. Maybe I don't have time, you know? And I realize there's far more positive people out there than there is negative people. And I'm not letting it get me down or anything like that. I've made it perfectly clear inside the comments, you know, look, you have your opinions, but I'm going to keep doing me. I'm going to keep doing me, and I'm going to do the videos that I want to do them. You know, I have a few partners that I work with, Sporlin, Refrigeration Technologies, occasionally Field Piece. And they're great partners because they appreciate what I'm doing, and they let me do what I want to do. Okay. They just want to be part of this project. And, you know, when it does come time to working with partners and sponsors and different things like that, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for anybody to tell me what I'm going to do, because it's just not going to happen. I don't do good when people try to tell me how to do things, you know, it just doesn't work that way. So anyways, so be it. Rant over. So I see a lot of people in the chat right now. If you guys have questions or things that you want me to answer, please put them in caps lock and I will try to get to them. Okay. I'd really appreciate it. I don't get to every single question. It's just there's too much stuff going on in these. So if I miss your question, feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. I will try to get back with you. Okay. Clearly, the last 3 weeks, I have an inbox that's insane, and I'm just not going to be able to get to everything. I might, you know, make my way through some of it over the next few weeks, but it's just going to take a long time. So if you sent me a question that I didn't answer, feel free to send it again, okay? There's just so much stuff going on, and I'm just trying to stay alive, all right? So let me see what we got going on in here. I'm not seeing anything too crazy. Okay, cool. I appreciate, you know, there's a lot of people that watch my videos that don't do air conditioning and refrigeration, and that's fine. Business owners, homeowners, restaurant owners, just people that, you know, just the algorithm sent them this video. I watch random stuff. One of my favorite things to watch right now is Brent Underwood's channel, Ghost Town Living. Dude's exploring a ghost town and building up a ghost town. Like, I love watching that. Matt's Off-Road Recovery. He's in Utah, and I think he's in Hurricane, Utah or something like that. And he just goes out and pulls people out. It's like, it's so easy to watch other stuff sometimes because you don't have to think, you know? So I appreciate anybody that's watching my videos and that gets some sort of an entertainment out of them, okay? Obviously, my videos are made for my own service technicians, but I realize that there's other people that enjoy them. And I realize that there's some service technicians that get benefit from my videos because they learn a tip or a trick or different things like that. I firmly believe in sharing knowledge, okay? There's still a discussion going on in one of these Facebook groups about someone being perturbed because of people sharing their information and their knowledge on YouTube. And this particular person, you may have seen this message board chat that's going on. This particular person, the gist of it is that he paid a lot of money for his education, and he feels like YouTubers or people putting their HVAC technicians putting their content, he wasn't just targeting me, but he's just saying people in general should not be putting their content on YouTube for free because he feels like he paid for his education, so everybody else should have to pay for theirs too. While I hear his argument, and while I still firmly do believe in a formal education of some sort, trade school, apprenticeship, you know, something like that, I believe that I should share the little bit of knowledge that I have with everybody, okay? I don't like my personal opinion. Again, if you think otherwise, that's fine. But my personal opinion is I don't like coveting information, okay? I believe we should share the information. I am not afraid of being replaced. I am not afraid of my job going away, okay? There's plenty of room for several, you know, for HVAC technicians all across the country and the world. Our jobs are in demand and they're in need, okay? We're not going to be replaced, right? It's not going to happen. So I'm going to keep standing on top of the pedestal that I've been given and share the little bit of knowledge that I have. And, you know, for people that don't agree with that, then so be it. It is what it is. We can coexist. You can believe your way, I'll believe my way, and I'm going to keep doing my thing and you keep doing your thing, you know? It is what it is. But I do believe in sharing knowledge, okay? You know, and, you know, of course I'm not upset because people get paid or anything like that. It is what it is. I make money off these videos. I'm not going to lie. Okay. But I do believe in sharing my knowledge, and this is a great resource because technically you guys don't have to pay me for this knowledge, right? Because YouTube's kind of helping me out a little bit. And of course I don't get paid, whatever. We're not even going to go into that, but I mean, it is what it is. I'm going to continue to share the little bit of knowledge that I have. Okay. So let me see. I'm not missing anything. You see a lot of gouging going on with R22. What's my opinion of the masses? Okay, so that's actually on my list of things to talk about. So I'm going to cross that one off, and we're going to talk about the refrigerant pricing right now, okay? So I believe firmly, yes, that R22 prices are going up, and I do believe it to be price gouging, okay? There is R22 sitting in recyclers' warehouses. Okay, so let's make it clear right now. R22 refrigerant is illegal to import into the United States, and it is illegal to manufacture new refrigerant in the United States. Okay, plain and simple. So what that means is we are cool and we're okay to continue using R22, but it either has to be leftover supplies, right? And or recycled refrigerant. When we recover R22 out of an air conditioner, we take it to a supply house, they send it to a recycler, they clean it, then they repackage it and resell it, okay? That is perfectly legal. The prices of R22 have shot up, and almost all other refrigerants have shot up through the roof. 410A is like tripled. R22 is insane what it did. It's nuts right now. Now, I believe, you know, supply and demand kind of stuff. I'm not mad because the prices, I mean, it's kind of frustrating, you know. But I mean, granted, we have been given a lot of time for the phase out. We've been warned for a long time that R22 is going away. But I'm going to stand on my pedestal and I'm going to gripe a little bit, okay? I have a customer that we just sent out a quote today, okay? We have a carrier package unit. I did not make a video on it, but I have a carrier package unit that has a completely plugged up fixed orifice metering device, okay? It is the liquid header going into the evaporator coil. It's a 5-ton unit. It is going to cost, let's just say, to replace that evaporator, because it comes with a liquid header on there, it's going to be a ridiculous amount of money, okay? I want to say the cost to replace the evaporator with labor, refrigerant, and everything like that, I want to say is like $4,500 or something like that. It's maybe even more than that, but it's really high. I can't remember the exact thing, right? To replace the air conditioner is going to cost 3 times that much because of all the crap we have to go through to get that air conditioner replaced. So everybody's like, hey, Why don't you just replace the unit when I repair things? It's because the costs are insane. And what the local cities and the code inspectors and all these people want from us, to replace these units is just not worth it for the customer. Now, in other places besides California, maybe it's cheaper, different things like that. But here in California, it is stupid expensive to replace an air conditioner on a commercial building because of what the city makes you want to go through. I recently heard a story from a friend of mine who does air conditioning and refrigeration in a separate company in my local area, and he called me because he was changing a walk-in cooler, replacing the entire thing, the box, the coils, the line set, and everything. And he wanted my opinion on it, and he was just asking me about permitting and all these different things. And I just said, well, technically you have to permit a walk-in cooler replacement. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, fire sprinklers, electrical code, all kinds of different things. And I said, when the city gets involved, it's going to be a disaster, okay? So he proceeded with the quote. He got it approved. He replaced the walk-in cooler, pulled a permit. But when it comes to the city signing off on the permit and being done with the job, that poor restaurant has to go spend $15,000 in repairs on other things that have nothing to do with the walk-in cooler because they want the building brought up to code. And interestingly enough, it's the health department that's getting involved in this stuff. The health department came in and basically ripped the restaurant a new one, saying you need to replace the floors, you need to fix this, you need to clean these walls, you need to do all this different stuff. Mind you, nowhere near and has absolutely nothing to do with the walk-in cooler replacement, okay? So here's my question that I asked my buddy. I said, how long has that restaurant been open? He said, like 30 years. And I go, how many times a year does the health department come into that restaurant and inspect that restaurant? And he said, like, oh, crazy, like once a month, all this. And I said, exactly. And all these things that they're making this restaurant do to bring the building up to code so that way they can sign off on the walk-in cooler that my friend installed perfectly, by the way, is ridiculous. And that poor restaurant is hurting because they wanted to do the right thing and upgrade their equipment. Now, I don't want to get political or any of that stuff on here, but I'm just saying the hoops that we have to jump through here in Southern California is insane, right? And in my opinion, again, I'm going out on a limb here and probably going in territory I shouldn't be, but it's money grabbing. It is money grabbing by the cities because the cities are also hurting and everything. And it's kind of sad that us contractors that want to do things the right way, that want to pull permits, that want to be 100% legit doing our job right, it's impossible for us to do everything right. We have to do so much, and we basically we're up against a wall and don't have any other place to go. It's so frustrating. So it is what it is, but it's just kind of a bummer, the craziness that happens. Okay, all right. Let me see what else we got going on in here. Let's see. Why do Carrier's pistons keep plugging up? Okay, Chad, I'm assuming you're talking about, well, first off, what causes a piston, a metering device, or any kind of a restriction, plugging up dryers and different things like that? It's contaminants, okay? Contaminants in the system. If technicians are not doing their due diligence and not following proper refrigeration practices, not pulling proper evacuations, not brazing with nitrogen. Again, I'm going to say this right now. I'm not a perfect technician, and I do not always braze with nitrogen. Sometimes I do take shortcuts, okay? So I'm going to be perfectly clear. I am not the perfect technician, okay? But when you don't braze with nitrogen, when you don't pull a proper evacuation, right? When you purge a system, just let the R22 push the air out, right? It doesn't really, but I mean, when you purge a system, there's going to be repercussions, okay? When you mix refrigerants, there's repercussions. So on my systems, why do these Carrier package units always have plugged up fixed orifice metering devices, the multi-orifice headers, okay? Why? Is because of contamination. The customer's not maintaining the equipment enough, not cleaning the equipment enough, not doing proper preventative maintenance, the technicians not doing the maintenances correctly, right? Not splitting the condensers and cleaning them on the inside. And I'm going to preface that with saying, in my recent video, I had a plugged up condenser that looked perfectly clean, but I split the condenser and there was years of dirt inside of there, all right? Now, I'm going to tell you something. That is one of my restaurants. And that particular customer, they do not pay us to split the condensers. We only split the condensers when we work on the unit and have a problem with it. We have not worked on that unit in years, other than doing routine preventative maintenance where we go and rinse off the outside condenser, change the belt, that kind of stuff. There has been no major repairs on that system, so therefore we haven't had a justifiable reason to say, hey, we need to pull this condenser apart, pull the top off, and split it and clean it. Mind you, too, splitting a condenser is really a job for two people. You know, one person can do it. I've done it. I've shown it in videos, but it's a struggle, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes on, especially when the units are really high. So if you don't maintain the equipment, if you run a dirty condenser all the time, over time, the system's head pressure, the condensing temp, is so high that the discharge temperature in the compressor gets high, the superheat runs high, it starts cooking the oil. Once the oil gets damaged, that oil kind of like, think about bacon grease, okay? Think about when you clean out a pan, there's all leftover black crap when you get all the grease out of the pan. That is happening inside the oil, and that's what's contaminating these fixed orifice metering devices. And it's simply because there's not enough preventative maintenance done to this equipment. Now, is that because we have extremely cheap customers? Is that because these customers don't want to maintain their equipment and they just want to make money and be rich and not fix anything? No, not my customers, okay? Yes, they are in business to make money. These are big corporations that have shareholders and all that stuff. Of course, they're in business to make money. But my customers, they do understand the need for preventative maintenance. Unfortunately, when you have a budget, they have to give and take, right? They have so much money and they have some capital expenses that come up and unplanned for expenses, and they have to spend the money, but then they have to take it from somewhere else. And preventative maintenance is typically the area that they pull from to come up with other money, at least in the restaurants that I work in, okay? So they found creative ways where they cut down their preventative maintenance. Instead of doing it every month, they go to every 3 months. Or they hire, I have a few different restaurants that use a national filter cleaning company. They'll come in and they'll clean the units, change the filters, change the belts. I mean, unfortunately, I don't want to blame everything on these big giant filter changing companies. They basically hire people at minimum wage to come in and do a task of a technician. So you can't expect perfection coming out of those. So it's kind of frustrating, because the customer thinks that they're getting, the customer knows because the price difference between the national filter changing company and me to do the exact same job is significant. Okay. So they have to do what they have to do, and they have to cut corners where they have to. And then you had this entire chaos that happened last year. Nobody can plan for that. And these restaurants are trying to recover from that. And here comes all the craziness, All right, so let's see what I got going on in here. What does the black flag mean in Measure Quick? The black flag means there's something major going on within that system. Compressor damage is imminent, okay? Typically, you'll get a black flag when you have extremely high suction temperature, extremely high discharge temperature. That's been my experience. But I am not an expert with Measure Quick. If you do have questions about Measure Quick, I encourage you to follow them on social media, reach out to them, and they'll answer more of your questions. But yeah, the black flag typically means there's imminent damage happening within that system. Almost basically shut it off and figure something out is kind of what it means. So let's see. What am I missing? Why is it so important to flow nitrogen when brazing? Kevin asks, okay? Because I'm not a super genius with this, but when you purge the system with nitrogen, you put a very, very small flow of nitrogen through the system while you're brazing. You have to have an exit point, okay? You put it in from one side and you have an exit point at the other side. What it's going to do is it's not going to allow that carbon crap to build up. If you've ever brazed on a copper line and you just heat it up from the outside, and over time, as it's getting hotter and hotter, when it gets cherry red, you'll start to notice that there's like these carbon flakes that build up on the outside of the line, and you can like wipe them off. That exact same thing is happening inside the refrigeration lines too. And that black carbon crap, depending on how big of a system it is and how many braze joints you're making, is going to eventually start to accumulate somewhere, okay? If you have a filter dryer after that brazing, then maybe the filter dryer will catch it. Maybe it'll plug up the filter dryer. Maybe it'll get caught in the TXV. Who knows, okay? But by purging with nitrogen, there's a very small amount of nitrogen. It's like rated an SCFM, I think, or something like that. It's a very, very small flow. It's not even a pressure. It's not like 5 psi. It's barely anything just flowing through there. All it does, I believe it keeps the oxygen from doing something in the system. So it's just sweeping the system to make sure. And then there's that steady flow. It doesn't affect your braze joint if done correctly. Okay. Be very cautious, though. I will say, in personal experience, trying to purge with nitrogen on a capillary tube system, I'm not a fan of that, and I haven't had very good luck with that. In my head, I don't know if this is accurate, but in my head, I see pressure drop problems, okay? Because that little bit of nitrogen's got to make it through the capillary tube, and if you have too much flowing through there, I would imagine that it's going to create a pressure drop, which is just going to create back pressure and just all kinds of issues. So be very careful about brazing with nitrogen on capillary tube systems, okay? All right, let's see what else we got going on in the chat right now. Let me see. Yeah, black flag equals you done goofed. Okay, what's the best way to clear a blocked capillary tube? Quinn Danihi? I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but okay. A plugged up capillary tube is a very difficult thing to clear. Now, they do make tools like capillary tube tools that like push crap through the cap tube and stuff. I don't buy any of that stuff, okay? If you have a plugged up capillary tube, your best bet is to replace the capillary tube. If you're trying to clear a restricted capillary tube, it really depends. Is it just a restriction at the beginning? If you're noticing a restriction at the end, it's probably too late and you're going to have a really hard time clearing it. Now, something to think about too. R134A and polyester oil. In the mid-90s became very popular as the medium temperature refrigerant in almost every reach-in cooler, okay? We started to notice plugged up capillary tubes with the R134A and the polyester oil, right? We typically notice it on systems that aren't maintained properly. The oil inside the compressor starts to get dirty, it starts to overheat, and you start to get buildup in the system, and then it'll coat the inside of the capillary tubes. If you don't believe me, when you cut out a capillary tube that's plugged up, just look in it, and you will see a coating of crap in a circle all around that capillary tube. It's just like wax buildup. Who knows what it is? It's just some sort of a contaminant. So if you have a capillary tube system that is plugging up and it's really bad, especially if you have to change the cap tube more than once because it keeps plugging up, it's time to change the compressor, or at least the compressor oil, but usually it's easier to change the compressor. So to be frank, if you're working on a true refrigerator, for instance, and it's under warranty and you have a plugged up capillary tube, they will send you out a new compressor and or condensing unit under warranty because they know that compressor oil is the cause of the capillary tube plugging up. All right. So if it is under warranty, even if the compressor's still pumping, you call True and you say, I have a very bad restriction on my capillary tube. I would like to change the compressor. They will send out a compressor. Okay, because they know that's going to cause the problem. So if you have multiple plugged up capillary tubes where it's happened more than once, it's time to look into that compressor oil and that source of contamination. Your best bet is to change the condensing unit because there could be oil stored in that condenser too. Okay, and then talk to your customer about maintaining that equipment better, keeping the condenser clean, not being in a high ambient kitchen. You got to think. If you have a condenser, let's just say on the roof, a walk-in cooler where I'm at, okay? If you have a condenser that's out in 115 degree heat, right? The temperature inside that system is a lot higher than 115 degrees, okay? Maybe 20 degrees higher, maybe more, right? And that oil in that compressor is getting pretty darn hot, okay? And bad things start to happen when you have really hot oil, especially when you have other contaminants in the system, moisture and different things like that, okay? Polyester oil is also a very good, what do they call it, a solvent, right? As it goes through the system, it actually clears the crap off the walls of the copper lines and cleans it. But that crap that it clears off has to accumulate somewhere, ends up in the crankcase of the compressor, ends up plugging up the TXV, all kinds of problems like that. I saw a super chat come through. Rethink HVAC, buy a pineapple on HVAC over time. Thank you very much for that super chat, bud. I really, really appreciate it. Okay. So I did have a question too. I want to get to the chat some more, but I did have a question about, expansion valves. So Nathan had emailed me and He said, I'm paraphrasing his question, that at his company, they've been changing a lot of expansion valves. And his boss, who does not work in the field anymore, but used to work in the field, said that when he was in the field, he might have changed, 20 something expansion valves that were actually bad. And his boss is basically saying that he feels like the company is changing way too many expansion valves. Maybe they're misdiagnosing things. So Nathan kind of wanted my opinion about this. And Nathan was also curious about the rust inhibitor debacle that happened with Copeland compressors years ago, okay? So he was curious if that has something to do with it. Right, first and foremost, I am going to say this right now, that I have very rarely seen bad expansion valves on my side too, okay? Now, I'm going to say that carefully. I typically deal with Sporlan expansion valves, okay? You will have failed power heads on expansion valves because the capillary tube typically rubs out. For the most part, expansion valves really don't have a lot of components inside of them to fail if installed and maintained properly, okay? You really shouldn't have to adjust on expansion valves very much other than the original installation. You really shouldn't be wrenching on expansion valves, okay? There's really not a lot to fail, but the key is if it's installed correctly, okay? Now, I said that I change a lot of power heads on Sporlan expansion valves. Yes, because typically the power head sensing bulb will tend to rub out in a bad place, or on the top, as they get really old, they'll start to rust out too, okay? And then they'll generate refrigerant leaks. Now, sometimes it will be easier to change the entire expansion valve than to just change the power head. So you will see me changing expansion valves, okay? It's a good practice if I'm changing an evaporator coil and I've got an expansion valve that's 2 inches away from the coil. I'm not going to unsweat the expansion valve and put it on a new evaporator coil. I'm going to change the whole valve, okay? So I do change expansion valves, but majority of the time, they're really not bad. They tend to have plugged up strainers if they have them. They sometimes will have removable strainers, and those strainers can get plugged up. It's really easy to change them or clean them. So I have a cutaway of a Sporlan expansion valve right here that I cut with my bandsaw. And you really see there's not a whole lot going on with this valve, okay? There's a spring, there's a seat, there's an orifice, there's a needle point where it allows the refrigerant to go through. You've got a power head. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on. Now, on some of these valves too, there'll be a strainer, right? Because this is a flare valve. There'll be a strainer built into it. Or you have... Whoop, dropping stuff, a removable strainer right here. This happens to be a dirty strainer from an SBQ body, actually. So these things fail. I keep these strainers on my truck in bulk because sometimes it's easier to take an old strainer out and just put a new clean one in instead of trying to clean an old strainer. So I agree with your boss in the sense that expansion valves typically don't fail. Okay, something usually happens within them. They could get plugged up, that kind of stuff. I'm kind of curious, Nathan, too, if you guys bring any of these expansion valves back to the shop and autopsy them, okay? Cut them open. It's super easy. If you guys are changing a bunch of them, bring back expansion valves and start cutting them open. See what caused them to not work right. Are they full of gunk? What kind of gunk is it? Is it because people are not pulling a vacuum, are not purging with nitrogen, that kind of stuff, okay? But, I mean, valves do fail, right? It just, most of the time, the valves, they pretty much handle it correctly if they're installed properly and maintained properly, okay? Now, as far as the debacle with the rust inhibitor, so my understanding with all that crap, Copeland compressor, what happened was one of their one of the other people that builds their compressors for them or something like that they changed a chemical that they add to the compressor to prevent rust. Again, I'm paraphrasing some of this stuff and I may not be 100% accurate, but I was told that oftentimes these compressors will be shipped without oil and different things like that. So they'll add a rust inhibitor to them to prevent any rust from building up inside of there. And supposedly what I heard is that someone changed that rust inhibitor without all the proper testing and approvals. And that led to a contamination issue that started gumming up expansion valves. Whatever that chemical was reacted with the oil or something like that, and it started gumming up the systems. For the most part, that should be worked out of our systems because that was quite a few years ago. And I would imagine that most of that stuff has been replaced, worked out of the system. So I don't think you're going to be seeing a lot of the rust inhibitor problems that we had with the Copeland compressors, but that would have had to have had a Copeland compressor in it too, not a LG or any of these other brands. It would have had to have been a Copeland scroll compressor that they added that rust inhibitor to. But again, those just hearsay, the stuff that I've heard. I don't know what all is true on that. All right. Let me see what else we got in the chat going on. That's a TXV condemned the wrong thing. Okay. Let me see. You want one of those expansion valves cross-sectionals. Yeah, so does Adam. Adam's been from the HVAC Overtime show. If you guys don't know, my buddies and I do a show on Friday evenings called the HVAC Overtime, or on the HVAC Overtime YouTube channel. There's a link in the show notes of this video. Joe, any of the moderators that are in here, I don't know who all's in here right now. Justin, anybody can post a link to the Overtime channel if you could, please. But Adam's been asking me for these cutaways. He was asking me if I would make him a cutaway. So to make this cutaway, it's you can do it, but getting the cut right is correct, or is difficult. So it actually took 3 of these valves. I went through 2 cuts until I figured out exactly where I wanted to cut it, and I took the valve apart before I cut it. So I pulled the guts out and then just cut the body. The flare valves are actually the easiest ones to cut because you've got this solid brass right here. If you try to take the sweat in valves with the copper coated, brass connections or whatever, and you start to cut those, it just bends them and deforms the metal. So the flare valves are the easiest ones to cut open for the cross-sectional to be able to open them up. And I've done it with a bunch of different stuff. I've got some more stuff behind me. I enjoy cutting stuff up. So I have a dryer that was actually given to me by Sporlan, but I've done these myself too, where you just cut them open, pull the insides out. I've got a liquid line solenoid valve that I cut open. This one right here. So you can see this is a simple E3 valve, super easy. Actually, this is an E6 valve. But yeah, super easy to cut away. My favorite cutaway was the head pressure control valve, the LAC valve. That one just shows the simplicity of this. And guess what, guys? I have a repair. I'm working on a video. This one won't come out because this is actually going to be a sponsored video, but I'm working on a repair where I replaced one of these, and it was really cool when I cut it open and I got to see why the head pressure control valve failed. Spoiler alert, head pressure control valves typically don't fail on their own, okay? There's not a whole lot in this valve that will go bad, right? So it's usually some sort of contamination, and I had that exact thing happen. So stay tuned. That'll be out in the next month or so. And then this is a stepper valve that I cut open too, and I have Sporlan's little tool so you can actually see the actuation happen. This is very similar to how an electronic expansion valve would work. This is not an electronic expansion valve. This is a SDS valve, but it's just a cool representation. It's bigger, makes you understand how an electronic expansion valve would work. And I have Sporlan's SMA 12 that basically actuates the EEV, and you can use this on multiple different things. So it's a pretty cool little tool. Let me put this stuff back and we'll continue talking. I just get curious and love cutting things open. So, those valves are fun to do, and it just really helps you. Like I show my technicians, I like making trainer boards. I've got smoke detector trainer boards that I've done. So it's a lot of fun, it's a good way to learn things for yourself. When it comes to smoke detectors, I struggled with those for years. And even when I would ask the alarm technicians that I thought knew everything they were doing, they would struggle with them until I really just made a trainer board and started testing and figuring everything out and realized that like, oh, these are pretty cool. It's pretty neat to work on the smoke detectors things. So can I talk about discharge pressure and subcooling? Mike Johnson. Okay, so I've been talking about this a lot in my videos. What I find out in the field is that sometimes when you go to get onto an air conditioning system and you want to check subcooling, you only have a discharge pressure port. Or sometimes you have a liquid line service port and you don't have a discharge pressure port at all, okay? Like a residential air conditioning system. For the most part, that is a liquid line service port coming off of the residential air conditioner, and most of the time you don't see a discharge port that's accessible inside the system, okay? You don't necessarily need discharge as much, especially when you're checking subcooling. But with that being said, sometimes I will work on a package unit, carrier for instance, does not have a liquid line service port, and they have a discharge line service port. So oftentimes on air conditioning systems, you can see a rather large pressure difference between the discharge pressure port coming off the compressor discharge line and the liquid line pressure port coming out of the condenser. Sometimes you can see up to 35 PSI drop across that. Quite a bit of a pressure drop, right? So depending on the type of equipment you're working on, refrigeration, you typically don't see much of a pressure drop, but on air conditioning, I tend to see more of a pressure drop. But what's interesting is it depends per manufacturer from my experience. And I'm talking on properly operating systems. You can see a pretty big pressure drop. So with that being said, if you are checking pressures and you're using the discharge pressure port, right, and you try to get subcooling, your subcooling number is going to be skewed a little bit. Maybe not a lot. I mean, if you wanted to know, let's just say R22, I'm looking at a pressure temperature chart right now. Let's just say R22, the saturation temperature at 296 PSI, the saturation temperature of R22 is 54 degrees, okay? So let's go 296 minus 35 PSI. So that would be 261 PSI, right? So let me find 261 PSI. The saturation temperature would be about 48 degrees, okay? So there's a temperature difference right there of 54 minus 48. There's a 6-degree temperature difference. Now, while that's not going to be a huge difference when it comes to subcooling measurement, that is going to make a difference. So it's something that you want to be aware about. So what I tend to notice is if, you know, you have an air conditioner that only has a discharge line pressure port, you'll tend to see your subcooling numbers run a little bit higher than what you would think, like 10 degrees or something like that, right? So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, is that you tend to run, you know, 1 to 2 degrees higher-ish on subcooling, but it really depends on the manufacturer, okay? So just keep that in mind. You know, there's not a whole lot you can do about it unless, like, I worked on a system recently and I added a liquid line service port, so you can actually get true subcooling. A lot of these manufacturers actually compensate for that by giving you their charging methods, and their charging methods might be different. For instance, Lennox, they typically don't tell you to charge by subcooling. They tell you to charge by approach temperature. Approach temperature is kind of like ass backwards subcooling. Approach temperature is the difference between the entering medium, the outdoor air on an air conditioner, and the liquid line surface temperature. Okay, so the difference between the entering outdoor air and the liquid line surface temperature would be your approach temperature. So you can see how kind of that is an ass backwards subcooling, because subcooling is liquid saturation temperature, right? And liquid line surface temperature, the difference between the two. So liquid saturation temperature is directly affected by the outdoor ambient. So that's why it's kind of an ass backwards way of subcooling. So anyways, hopefully that answers your question a little bit on that one. Let's see what else we got going on in here. How often do I find Honeywell thermostats that won't respond to touch? When they get older, that's something that happens quite often. I've shown it in my videos a bunch. XDX valve, I said SDS valve. It's a refrigeration valve. They'll use it for discharge. It's more of a supermarket thing, so I'm not going to go into that because I don't have a lot of knowledge with that valve, okay? Let's see. When do we get to go live out in the field with me again? Steven, going live in the field has been really difficult. There's a lot of variables about going live. I have to do a really good job of protecting my customers' locations. When you go live, it gets really difficult to do that unless I'm just changing a compressor like I have done in the past and we're literally just talking in front of the compressor. That's an easy one. I haven't had the opportunity to do anything like that. I'm also working with an apprentice right now, and he's doing really well, by the way, but getting you know, having to teach him, and it's making it easier to do the videos, but it's just, you know, doing a live service call is rather difficult. That and internet service sucks everywhere you go. Even with 5G, it sucks. So let's see what else we got going on in here. What am I missing? This dang YouTube thing is screwing up. There we go. Let's see. Yeah, the new apprentice Dave is doing great. What are some of the best practices with economizers? Frank, great question, and I'm actually want to talk about that anyways. So let me turn my air conditioner down because my office is starting to get hot right now. I need a thermometer in here to tell me how hot, but it feels like it's 80 degrees in here right now. So I'm going to turn my air conditioner down to 70. All right, so when it comes to economizers, okay, number one, I get a lot of questions all the time of people asking me, why are economizers always bypassed, and or why do I always bypass them, okay? Because, all right, and I'm going to give you a perfect example of this. For the most part, my customers, maybe other ones do, but my customers do not see the return on investment in an economizer, okay? The failure points on the economizers that I experience are sensors, actuators, and control modules, okay? Because, in my opinion, they're not installed in good locations. Oftentimes, in my recent video that I just did, the Honeywell Jade controller is located in the return airstream, okay? And the outdoor air sensor is located in the outdoor air. The mixed air temperature sensor is located in the mixed air temperature section, right? Those sensors on that system that I changed, where I had an air conditioner not working and it was the two sensors that failed, those sensors get changed 3 to 4 times a year, okay? Because they go bad because the outdoor ambient contaminates them, the sensor connections start corroding. And if you think about, let's just say those sensors alone, I don't even know for sure how much those sensors cost, but if I had to guess off the top of my head, probably about 40, 50 bucks a sensor, okay? Would be my guess. And if you're changing those 3 to 4 times a year, plus adding a couple hours of labor, travel time, that kind of stuff, what are you looking at? 400 or 500 bucks, you know, something like that, per time. And what's the cost of an economizer assembly for that AC? If I had to guess, I don't know, $2,000, you know, something like that, $3,000, something like that, to install an economizer assembly with labor. Again, I'm just pulling these numbers out of my head. So the return on investment is, it goes away really quick when you have the sensors fail that much, right? Consistently. And are they really saving that much in energy versus the amount of money they're spending? So my customers, for the most part, they typically don't want to fix these. Now, the ones that I did fix on that system, I keep trying to baby those along because I don't like bypassing stuff. I don't like bypassing economizers. I'd love to fix everything I can. So I'm going to continue to try to fix them and keep them operational because I like an economizer. The concept of it is great. It's just the repair on them tends to be a lot, and the customers typically don't want to spend that money. Now, it is an energy code in California. If you install a new air conditioner, 2000 CFM or bigger, you have to have an economizer and all that stuff, right? But majority of the time, the customers will install them to follow proper codes and to pass permit inspections. But then when they fail, they don't want to fix them, okay? Because they just spend too much money on them, and that's just their belief on it. So we don't fix economizers. So what are things to look for with economizers? If given the perfect scenario that a customer lets me maintain them, is we're probably going to clean the electrical connections on them. Maybe, as long as it's not causing any communication issues, put some dielectric grease to keep moisture from building up on the terminals to corrode them. Really big, when you're cleaning an air conditioner, when you're hosing it down, do not hose the outside air filters with the filter in place. Okay, that is something that I've seen many times in the past, where a technician will come in and he's just hosing down the condenser, and he'll take the hose over and rinse off the outside air filter with it still in the outside air hood. Well, the outdoor air sensor, whether it be enthalpy sensor or dry bulb sensor for the economizer, is right behind that filter, and it typically gets wet, and that's one thing that can cause them to short out. Moisture in the air and different things like that is another. Another thing that we can do on economizers to maintain them is, if you pull the whole hood assembly off and get the actuator out, is clean the gears, clean the actuator connections, and then lube them up. But the problem with using a lube on them is that oftentimes, like a dielectric grease or something, it will attract dirt, and then it'll get gummed up even more. So it's really just about cleaning and maintaining them, is my opinion. And I have said this before. Let me find the book. I've shown this a million times. I found this to be amazing, okay? This is the Technical Reference Manual from Honeywell, Design and Application Guide for Honeywell Economizer Controls. Now, you can download this. Just Google this manual, Technical Reference Manual, Honeywell Economizers, and it breaks down every style of economizer that I've ever run across, the old school to the new school, and it explains how they work, how to diagnose them. This is a great manual. It even goes to the new Jade controllers, explains programming and everything. So if you want to learn more about economizers, I run into a lot of Honeywell products. Get this manual. Just download it off the internet. I had supply houses order these, but getting manuals like this is really difficult anymore. I don't even mind paying for them. I'll go to the supply house and say, I want 5 of these, and whatever it costs, just get them to me, you know? But this is a great manual to have. All right. A lot of places are not installing make-up air units anymore. Yeah, that is a really big thing. A lot of restaurants are oversizing their air conditioning equipment and they're using the air conditioning equipment to bring in fresh air into the building, okay? And that can be a very problematic thing. And I'm going to give you the perfect example, the perfect storm. I have a restaurant that about 15 years ago, they built several restaurants across the country. This is a big chain. And they were sold on this really cool new exhaust system. It's a really cool, smart system. It's a super smart exhaust system made by a company called Maylink. Really cool. What it does is it has infrared beams that go across the hoods, and it has temperature sensors, and it's about energy savings, okay? And whenever it would get really smoky in the kitchen, that smoke would interrupt the little infrared beam going across there, and that would tell the exhaust system, hey, there's a lot of smoke in here. You need to speed up, okay? So are you getting me with this? So they would run that system, the exhaust system, at low speed majority of the time to save energy, so that way they're not wasting energy. Okay. They also had temperature sensors. So that way, if the temperature in the hood got really high, it would turn the exhaust fans on to full speed. It also had safeties built into it that if someone ever turned on the cooking appliances without turning on the exhaust fans, the temperature sensors would automatically turn on the exhaust fans. Okay. The 98 DeVille, thank you so very much for that super chat, man. That's awesome. Please hit the thumbs up, guys. Okay, so that mailing system was really cool, but what my customers started to notice, because they have really, and I'm not blaming the mailing system, I think it was great, but we don't have very good power here in Southern California, and we have poor energy grid, we have brownouts, different things like that, and we didn't have proper power conditioning on these buildings. They should have had safety devices. Rethink, again, thank you so much for that super chat, or hit the thumbs down, that's right. Thumbs up or thumbs down, it's an interaction, so it's all the same. But we would lose VFDs quite often because that's how they sped up and slowed down these exhaust fans. These exhaust fans were direct drive fans. They didn't have belts. So not only was the customer saving money on electricity because the exhaust fans were running at slow speed majority of the time and only speeding up when it got smoky in the kitchen, which was really cool. Then they didn't have belts on their exhaust fans. So there was no belts to change. It was a direct drive motor. The maintenance was dramatically reduced, right? So this seems like a win-win, but here comes the problem. After about 6 to 7 years of runtime, we really started to lose these VFDs, especially after a power outage. We would tend to notice that we would have a power outage and then boom, we'd have 1, 2, we'd slowly lose all 5 VFDs for the exhaust fans. Then we'd have to go in with a new VFD. These VFDs were, by the time they were installed, they were $1,500 to $2,000 each with labor and everything, right? And you have that times 5. And then the customer finally got sick of it and they said, you know what? We don't want this smart hood system anymore. We want you to bypass it, right? But then that presented a problem because remember I told you guys that these exhaust fans that were running in this building were direct drive. There's no belts, there's no pulleys. You can no longer speed up or slow down those exhaust fans if you bypass the VFDs. If you bypass the VFDs, you're going to feed 60 hertz to that motor. It's going to run at full speed all the time and it will still run, but that becomes a problem. So the customer wanted me to go in and bypass all the VFDs. And I said, well, we have to put in conventional motor controls because we have to protect the motors. They're 3-phase motors. So we rewired the entire exhaust hood. I've done this like 6-7 times now. So it's pretty fun to do. But you go in and you rewire the entire exhaust system. You put in normal switches. You put in normal motor starters. You wire it into the Ansel system, into the smoke alarms, into the fire system. But here's the kicker. When they installed those super high efficient Maylink systems, they would do an air balance on the building and they would air balance it at low speed because it ran at low speed for majority of the time. So now that I put it up on high speed, these exhaust fans are running really fast and they're pulling a lot of air out of the building. If you've ever heard me talk about air balance, take a paper bag, put your mouth over it and suck the air out of the bag. The bag will collapse, okay? cut a hole in the bottom of that bag and the air will pass through. With an exhaust system, we have to have makeup air in the building. Well, another thing when they went with this smart hood system that saved them money was they didn't have to install makeup air units because they use the makeup air in the ACs. They were pulling outside air through the ACs, and they would only have to open the outside air dampers all the way whenever the exhaust fans would speed up to full speed. Well, that presented a problem when I bypassed all their systems, because now we don't have enough makeup air to balance out the building, and the building was extremely negative and people couldn't open the doors. And then when they opened the doors, because the doors were literally being sucked shut, 006, thank you so very much for that super chat, man. That is amazing that I was able to help you. So awesome. Thank you, bud. So when those ACs would open up the outside air dampers, right, we would have to open the dampers 100% to balance out the building. Well, to get the balance even close. But then that presents a problem. I have an air conditioner. I made a video called "It's Dying a Slow Death," and I explained the situation. It's out in the desert where it's 115 degrees, and we're bringing in 100% outside air through the economizer dampers to make up for the exhaust fans. And it's killing every compressor in that AC. So all this to save energy that saved the restaurants a lot of money in the very beginning ended up costing them money down in the future because we can't balance out the building. They don't have makeup airs. They went through all these different things, okay? So it's cool when they come up with this cool energy efficient stuff, but when it starts failing, when you have to bypass it, that's when you run into some serious problems. So I went off on a serious rant there. Let me see what else we got. Again, these super chats, guys, you are amazing. Thank you so very much for all these super chats. Josie, thank you very much. I don't know if I butchered your name, but you guys are amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. So, a viewer had asked me, actually, I wanted to bring something up. I had said so, and I think the moderator bot is putting this in too. Sporlan has a promotion right now with their Zoom Lock Max. If any of you guys are using the Zoom Lock Max products, okay, what you want to do is take a picture of your install, take a picture of you using the tool or anything like that, and post it on social media, okay? They've got a promotion right now. If you post it on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and or Twitter, any one of those, and use the hashtag, let me see, what is the hashtag right here? Hashtag Team Zoom Lock, all one word, okay? You'll be entered into a contest to win some Sporlan swag, and they have a Leatherman knife that they're going to be giving these away to a lot of people. So if you guys have any Zoom Lock Max installs with the new Zoom Lock Max and the fittings and all that stuff, take a picture of it, post it on social media, tag Sporlan, use the hashtag Team Zoom Lock, and you'll be entered for a chance to win, I think it's some t-shirts, some merch, and a Leatherman knife, okay? And I believe they're giving this away to a lot of different people. So definitely do that if you guys are using the Zoom Lock Max products, okay? Before I forget about that. All right, let me see. So a viewer had asked me, yeah, my new album, Dying a Slow Death. Let's see. A viewer had asked me about tips for working in the heat, okay? So my brothers that work in Arizona, Nevada, you guys know what heat is, okay? The Southern California deserts, we know what heat is, all right? Right now, not where I'm at. Where I'm at, it's about 100, 105 degrees. But if I go out into our deserts, right, our low deserts, the Coachella Valley, it can easily hit 120 degrees, easily, okay? And I have to work in that stuff. So people ask me, like, how do I do that stuff? It's really a mindset, right? It's about staying properly hydrated, eating food. You have to eat breakfast. You have to eat lunch. I know it's hard. Just something. Not a lot, just something to get you by, to have energy. And drinking lots of water, drinking electrolytes, staying as cool as possible. Now, I've been working in the heat for so many years. I'm kind of in it. I wear long sleeve shirts. I know a lot of people ask me how the heck I can wear long sleeve shirts all the time. It's because we don't have humidity, guys. It's really dry here. So the long sleeve shirts are keeping the radiant sun off my skin. I'm also afraid of skin cancer. So they keep my skin, you know, from getting burnt all the time, but they also keep the sun off my skin, and they allow you to, they stop you from getting refrigeration burns. I used to have track marks all down my arms, not from heroin, but from touching discharge lines and things like that. And I don't have that anymore because I wear those long sleeve shirts. I wear Dickies long sleeve shirts, and they help out a lot. William J. the Poet. Dude, that is amazing. I really appreciate that super chat, man. Thank you so very much, man. That is awesome. Thanks, bud. All right. Let me see what else we got going on in here. So working in the heat, Just stay hydrated, lots of electrolytes, eat food, use sun protection, floppy hats, a wet towel around your neck. I wear a headscarf occasionally, and I'll wet that. Just keeping your tools and everything, trying to stay efficient, and go take breaks down in the box. One really important piece of advice, and I was telling my apprentice this the other day, we work in restaurants all the time, okay? And they have a walk-in freezer and a walk-in cooler at almost every restaurant I go to. And it's really easy for us to think, I'm overheating, I'm going to go sit in the walk-in freezer. That's very dangerous, okay? Because you can put your body into shock depending on how hot you are, okay? And remember something. If you start to feel the symptoms of heat stroke, it's too late. Don't let yourself get to that point of heat stroke, because heat stroke, I've never had a heat stroke. I've gotten heat exhaustion. I've gotten sick from heat, but I've never had a heat stroke. Okay. Heat strokes can be deadly. And you want to be very careful about shocking your body. So if you're working out at 115 degrees for 10 hours and you just run down into the walk-in freezer that's -10 and you sit in there for 20 minutes, be very careful, because you can get lightheaded, you can pass out, you can have some issues. So don't shock your body like that. So if you're going to go cool down, you need to acclimate. Like I told my helper, or my apprentice, is if you're overheating, first off, you don't want to get to the point that you overheat, but if you start to get there, you want to go downstairs into the 75, 80 degree ambient, sit there for 10, 15 minutes, then slowly, if you have to, work your way into the walk-in cooler, but be very careful, but stay out of the walk-in freezer. But be very cautious about shocking your body, because you can get very sick from that. And also remember, if you feel the symptoms of heat stroke, it's too late, okay? Pay attention to your body. If you stop sweating, you need to cool yourself down 911, okay? It is so important. All right, let me see what else we got going on in this thing. Best condenser cleaner on the market. Mark, I have been having very good luck with Refrigeration Technologies products. Their blue Venom Pack is the super strong condenser coil cleaner. They call it a coil brightener. That thing will eat almost anything, but it is corrosive and it will etch the coil, so be very careful. The next best thing for microchannel condensers and any other condenser is their yellow Venom Pack. It just says condenser coil cleaner on it. That stuff is not corrosive. It is aluminum safe. You can use it on microchannel condensers and it works amazing. So I like Refrigeration Technologies products. The Venom Packs, they work really well. Remember that the Venom Pack, if you buy it, it is a highly concentrated cleaner. I think you get 6 or 8 gallons of cleaner out of that one Venom Pack packet. Okay, so be very cautious about that. Don't just pour a whole Venom Pack in there, because you're using way too much cleaner. Okay, Refrigeration Technologies has a brand new coil gun that optimized the dilution ratios, and it works much better. Instead of using the competitors' guns that mix it incorrectly, the new Refrigeration Technologies gun mixes the cleaners correctly and allows you to clean them and use the proper ratios. So keep that in mind. Jordan Werner, amazing. Thank you so much for that super chat. I really appreciate it. That is really cool that I motivated you to get into HVAC, and I want to talk about that too. Dave G, you're the man. Pack of Chiclets, you're the man. Thank you so much, okay? All right, let me see what else we got going on in here. Yeah, the Venom Pack, the blue one, makes a really good degreaser for sure. So you don't have Venom Packs at your supply houses. Mike B, if you don't have Venom Packs at your supply houses, go to TrueTechTools.com. Use my offer code BIGPICTURE. You can save at the moment. This won't last forever, but at the moment you save 8% on your order, and they'll ship it out to you. If you place a big enough order, a lot of times they do free shipping. I love TrueTech Tools, so check out TrueTechTools.com, okay? Should you get digital gauges after school? Free funky. I do believe that digital gauges are a huge asset, okay? But I would encourage you to reach out to the company that you potentially want to work with, reach out to multiple companies in your area, and ask them what kind of tools they recommend for the type of work you're going to be doing with those companies before you go and blow your wad on a bunch of tools that actually don't work for you, okay? I've had people that went and spent a crap ton of money, or they went to a trade school and they were given all these tools, and they're all junk. They don't work for what we're doing. So I'm not saying every tool is trash. I'm just saying be cautious about spending a crap ton of money on tools before you get out there. Also, pay attention to what the companies you're potentially going to go work for do for you. In my area, Southern California, it is pretty common on the commercial side that as a contractor, I provide vacuum pumps, recovery machines, torches, heavy duty leak detectors. I provide all the heavy tools to my employees. They provide digital gauges, cordless drill, and hand tools. Okay. So keep that in mind before you go as new guys and spend a bunch of your money. Find out how the area works and, how people, what companies provide in your area before you go and spend all your money. Okay. Where can you get refrigerant leak detectors for cheap, and how do you use them? TrueTechTools.com. I've got lots of videos. There's affiliate links in the show notes of my videos. And in my videos, you see how to use them all the time. So, all right, let's see what else we got. All right. A viewer had asked me if the HVAC trade is good to get into. Zero Knot, thank you so much for that super chat, man. That is amazing. You wish your warehouse would install a 25-ton AC system for your tent. That is an amazing super chat. Thank you so very much. So, a viewer had asked me if HVAC is a good trade to get into. Heck yes, HVAC is a good trade to get into, but let's not cookie coat this, okay, or sugarcoat this. HVAC is a challenging trade, okay? It's not for someone that's lazy. It's not for someone that's not motivated. It's not for someone that doesn't have drive, okay? You have to work your butt off. You're going to bust your knuckles. You're getting dirty. You're turning wrenches. You're working on exhaust fans. You're working on air conditioners, refrigerators. It's messy in the kitchen. Cooks are kicking you. It's busy. It can be a challenge, but it can be very rewarding too. I love fixing things. I'm going to tell you right now, the best part about my job is getting out and wrenching on things. I can relax. It's peaceful. The worst part about my job is running a business. I'm thankful for everything that I have, but if I'm stressed, I just need to get out and work. I love fixing things. I love making videos. I love just solving problems, okay? HVAC is an amazing trade. You have the potential to make lots of good money, okay? For the most part, the entire pandemic, I mean, we did slow down for about 3 weeks in the very initial part of the pandemic because everybody freaked out and panicked. But for the most part, we stayed working, okay? We were essential. We are important. We had to fix home air conditioners. We had to, I mean, the residential side was booming during the pandemic, okay? So HVAC is a great trade to get into. If you guys are considering it, I highly suggest you do it. But remember, you have to be a motivated person, okay? Because it's going to be challenging. It's not an easy cakewalk. It's not a job that you get to call in sick every other day. If you get hired on in an HVAC company, you're an asset. They're going to count on you and they're going to need you, okay? So you have to make a commitment to be an HVAC for sure. All right. If I'm missing anybody's questions, you feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com, okay? I already covered that question. I need to mark that off. Let's see. I already answered that. Okay, I'm going to get to the chat right now. What am I missing? All right. Let's see. Let's see. JJ, you're 65, probably old to start, too old to start in the field. Okay, it is going to be a challenge, okay, to get into HVAC for sure, okay, at that age. But it's not impossible, okay? You're probably not going to be on the service side. You're probably not going to be out there working for restaurants and different things like that. But institutional work, there's a very good possibility you might get picked up by a hospital doing preventative maintenance work and different things like that. So age isn't necessarily a complete no when it comes to HVAC, but you just have to understand you're probably not, I mean, unless you're the most physically fit 65-year-old in the world, you're probably not cut out for general service work like I do every single day. And I'm not saying you can't. Maybe you can, but majority of people aren't going to be. But there is institutional work that can keep people busy all day long. Joe, why are you giving me a super chat? Thank you very much, Joe, but you don't need to give me a super chat. I appreciate it, bud. All right, let's see what else we got in here. In future, could you do a video of a full hood bypass with wiring in the controls? No, I actually cannot, Cyborg Sheep. There's a lot of stuff that I cannot show in videos due to code requirements and legal crap and stuff like that. So let's just say that sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get things working. And those are some of the things. Unfortunately, they make for the best videos in the world, but you just can't show them to an audience of, crazy amounts of followers and viewers. So if you catch my drift. Applying for a teaching job, HVACR tomorrow at a vocational school. All right, Jeffrey. Very cool, man. All right. Okay, I already answered that one. How did I approach my customers and get their permission to record job sites? Ignorance is bliss, and it's better to ask for forgiveness later sometimes, okay? So in the very beginning, I didn't ask my customers. It most of the time came up. But you have to understand something. I actually have it in my employee handbook that my employees are not allowed to record, post on social media, or anything like that. Okay. They cannot do what I do. And it's not because I'm trying to be a hypocrite. It's because most people don't know what goes into and how hard I work to hide locations, accidentally showing customers locations, showing work uniforms. Now I realize that I've shown my work uniform. Most people know where I work now. In fact, I get freaking phone calls about it. That's weird. But anyways, that's a whole nother thing. But I've kind of relaxed on the showing my company name. I really don't advertise it, but it's out there, you know, what company I work for. But you know, asking the customers in the beginning, I didn't, but as things got bigger and bigger, yes, I did, but I still hide the customers' locations and work really hard not to show sensitive information, because what the general public thinks is nasty is truly not nasty. So, wow, guys, I'm so blown away with all these super chats that came through. I'm still seeing them trickle through. Thank you so very much. So, do I repair morgues? I have in the past. I don't do any work for any morgues right now. I used to work for a hospital, and I'd have to work on their morgue coolers all the time. It was pretty cool. There's a one time that, because whenever I had to work on the coolers, we called them, they had a 4-passenger cooler and they had a 2-passenger cooler, right? So they had a two-door unit and a 4-door unit. And one time I got there and they wanted me to work on it. It was all iced up and it was full. It had 4 passengers in it. And I was like, guys, the people need to go. You know, I got to work on this thing. They can't be in there. And they were scrambling to find people to move them. And I got to help the orderly. Like, they have these really cool, it almost looks like a genie lift, like that lifts the trays up, and we got to like put them on carts, and then he pushed them to God knows where in the hospital. But like, I got to help them like lift the bags out and stuff. It was pretty cool. I mean, obviously I'm not making light of a horrible situation. There was somebody there, someone's family member and stuff. It was a bummer, but I mean, it was very interesting to be able to help out with them moving and to see the mechanics of how they move the people and stuff like that. But I do have to say that one of the darkest things that I've seen was working in the morgue, and there was a tiny body bag. That one hit me hard. You know, that one was just like a gut punch, because you assume that majority of the people have lived a good life and have, you know, are probably older in age. You know, you're not seeing them. They're in bags. So, you know, but, you know, and obviously you have much respect for them and you're not doing anything crazy. But when I saw that tiny body bag with a name on it, that one made me sad, you know, really sad. But yeah, I don't do a lot of work there though. Let me see what else. What is that? Oh, okay. The Carrier Eco Blue motor takes about 5 minutes to change, just so I know. Oh, okay, right on. Yeah, I'm worried about that Carrier Eco Blue motor because just the amount of grease that would build up in there. And I'm kind of curious, Couch Potato, how much that motor costs, because I foresee those things failing when they're installed on a kitchen AC a lot, because they're going to get gummed up with grease like crazy. So... No, I get phone calls at my business asking to talk to me because they saw a video that they liked. That's what's interesting. All right. I already answered that question. If I missed your guys' questions, feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Okay. What has customers said that made me hang up the phone and refuse a call? I can't think of something that I've refused the call over the phone, but like right now I get customers that'll email me and call me, and I'm not taking new customers. I can't keep up with what I have going on right now, and I'm not going to take on a bigger workload than I can handle. My business is treated a little bit different than most. You know, we've done it before where we took on way too much work and it was just chaos, and we don't do that anymore. I don't want to work 70 hours a week. I'm not interested in that. Okay. If I can get my 50, 55 hours a week, I'm a happy camper. 70, no, I don't want to work anything more than that either. I'm a baby when it comes to that. So, all right, let's see what else we got in here. Maybe it was an old midget. You're right, Bill. My bad. Let's talk about that on Friday, Bill. Okay. Oh man, if I put a bigger or smaller belt on a package unit, will affect the airflow. Well, yeah, I mean, if you tension the belt up properly, no, not necessarily. But if the belt's running loose and floppy, yeah, it's going to slow down the airflow for sure. But putting a bigger belt and adjusting the belt size, not necessarily. As long as you can get it tensioned correctly, then you're fine. You're good to go. What is a swamp cooler? We do not have those there in Missouri. Melvin, A swamp cooler is an evaporative cooler. You do have evaporative cooling in Missouri. You just don't know that you do, okay? You will see evaporative cooling used in industrial and commercial work. And the evaporative cooling effect partially happens in the refrigeration system too, okay? But a general swamp cooler is typically used in dry climates, the Southern California deserts, the Arizona deserts, Nevada deserts, New Mexico deserts. And what it does is it is a cooling medium. It's using evaporation of water to change the temperature of the air. But when you run water across a media pad and then you push air across it, you're going to speed up the evaporation process, but you're going to load that air that's running through there. It's going to cool it, sometimes 20 to 30 degrees, but it's going to load it with moisture and it's going to make it super humid, hence the term swamp cooler. Because if you put an evaporative cooler on your house, it can make your house feel swampy and sticky and just icky depending on your humidity levels outside. Okay, so when you have really low humidity, it's not a very big deal and they are very effective. I was working on a refrigeration rack today, not the one you guys have seen in a video recently, but another one that I've added a swamp cooler or evaporative cooler just to blow cool air on the condenser because it has a hard time in the heat. So they have good uses, but you just have to have the right ambient for them. Jose Rivera, thank you so much for that super chat. And yes, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, okay? And single mothers, I guess. You got to say that now too, just to be inclusive, I guess. Ironically, who asked me that question? I'm trying to go back up to that question. I just saw Ike answer the question about the swamp coolers because Missouri has high humidity. But I am actually from Missouri, of all things. I've told that to Ike before. I was actually born in Missouri, and I still have family in Missouri. I was born in Rolla, Missouri, of all things, at Phelps County Hospital. So, interesting fun fact. And hey, Ralph, my buddy Ralph with Honeywell Refrigerants is in here. Dallas fan. How you doing, bud? All right. Let me see what else we got in here. Melvin, you said all your company works on is restaurants. You are the owner. Right on, bud. Yeah, it's cool when you get to kind of pick and choose what you want to do, and that's what I do. So let's see. Let me go through my list. I already answered that question. I wanted to kind of touch on this one. We touched on the refrigerant stuff in the very beginning and how the prices of refrigerant are skyrocketing right now and how crazy that is. I'm sure you guys are all seeing it too, but we're seeing parts issues and equipment issues for sure. I have a service technician out at a restaurant over the weekend. They have a Train Voyager fancy variable speed compressor, top of the line, all these bells and whistles, dehumidifying, all this crap, right? And it has a 3-phase condenser fan motor on it. That condenser fan motor failed over the weekend. Minimum 3-week lead time. Nowhere else we can get it because it's an OEM specific 3-phase condenser fan motor with the Train. I mean, I'm sure I can modify something to make it work, but it's a trip that we can't get a motor from Train for over 3 weeks at a minimum. That's, it may be longer. Who knows? So we had to put a mister on the condenser, but that mister on that condenser for 3 weeks is going to destroy that condenser. So we got to figure out another solution for that one. But that was a trip, man. I couldn't believe that 3-week lead time for a fan motor. That's nuts. All right. So how do I feel about R22 Game Master? Well, R22 is a great refrigerant. It works good. Unfortunately, it's not good for the environment and it's not good for our health. And like it or not, it's being phased out. So we have to come up with some other alternative choices for R22. The stuff kind of hit the fan in the last couple weeks because the price of R22 shot up significantly. Insane how much it went up, but a lot of the refrigerant shot up too. Has a lot to do with demand, has a little bit, in my opinion, to do with some people wanting to change the price a little bit too. But I mean, so be it. If they've stocked up and have huge supplies of it, why shouldn't they be able to kind of throttle up the price a little bit too? So I'm not faulting everybody for that one, but the prices have jumped crazy. It's kind of insane, but it is what it is. Why do simple calls sometimes turn into disasters? Typically because of poor preventative maintenance. If the customers did a better job of having us maintain their equipment, we would typically have less things that turn into 5 air conditioners down or 3 air conditioners down, or the disasters that you guys see in my videos. I want you to understand something too. I show a lot of the crazy stuff in my videos. What's in my videos is not the everyday life of every HVAC service technician. I typically take the difficult and stressful service calls, or the service calls that take multiple technicians. I have other technicians that are working throughout the day just doing normal refrigeration service calls all day long. Okay. So it's not always as crazy as I show in my videos. Sometimes it can be downright boring, which can be good. You know, sometimes it's just cleaning equipment and stuff like that. Let me see what else. Again, thank you so much for those super chats. Do I get discounts from restaurants that I service on food and drinks? Dylan. Yeah, oftentimes I have restaurants that'll offer me free food. I've actually learned to not accept free food anymore. And it's typically not because I don't like the restaurant, but when I go home, I just don't want to eat at a restaurant. And I want to be able to go out on the weekend or at nighttime with my family and enjoy a restaurant. But if I'm taking free food from restaurants all day long, then I don't want to. Okay. There's burger places that I work at on a regular, and when I go home, my daughter wants to go eat dinner there, you know, and it's like, but I just worked there and they just gave me food. I don't want to eat there. I just want a home cooked meal. So I stopped accepting free food for the most part from all of my restaurants. Plus it's typically unhealthy too. I stopped accepting free food, and then I go out to the restaurants on my own time and get to enjoy them, and I don't feel burnout on them or disgusted. You know, eating when you're at work in HVAC can be a challenge. It's really easy for us to eat fast food, and every time I eat fast food, I feel like crap. I feel guilty. Try to make better choices. It's difficult. Try to take your lunch, but that can be a challenge. If I do go out to eat, I try to get salads and different things like that and try to stay somewhat healthy. Try to change it up every once in a while instead of just eating burgers and fries. Even though that's great, I love burgers and fries, it just can't be good for you in the long run, you know, eating all that stuff. I know what the kitchen looks like, cleanliness or lack thereof, but ignorance is bliss, Mike B. You know, if I don't know what a kitchen looks like, I just soon not know, so that way I can eat there and just not even worry about it. So and I get ice at restaurants all the time, guys. I know people ask me that question. Do you ever get ice? Yeah, I get ice all the time. Ignorance is bliss, guys. If I can't see it in the ice, then I'm just going to keep on trucking. All right. Well, I think it is about that time, guys. This has been a very good live stream, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. What can rolling a belt on do to a belt? It can stretch the belt, which can be a problem. Okay. I'm not going to say that I don't roll belts on. I will roll belts on, but you typically don't want them to be fully tensioned when you do roll them on. So be careful about that. But yes, I am going to wrap this up. It is about time to get out of here. I am going to cue up the outro music. Remember, guys, if you haven't already, check out my website, hvacrvideos.com. We've got these hats, shirts, all that good stuff. I actually just placed another hat order because we were running a little low. We still have plenty in stock, but we're just getting low. So I just ordered another 50. And those will be coming in stock soon. I really, really appreciate you guys. I am going to cue up the outro music, and we will catch you on the next one.